And we're back live from Los Angeles with our guest, Jeff Cruer from Ringside Politics Radio, talking about Donald Trump's new campaign ad. A campaign ad for a campaign that hasn't started yet. An election year ad for a sitting president who is not currently running for re-election. It's remarkable. Jeff, you mentioned before the break that this kind of thing could be done to target specific issues. It could, one, target specifically why we need to repeal Obamacare, specific ones on North Korea, whatever the case may be. What fascinates me about this is not so much the topics, but the fact that these are very well done. They're very effective. And we are seeing Donald Trump basically, instead of trying to assault this front line and the trenches and the barbed wire and the mines and the machine guns and the artillery, he's basically going over and parachuting in behind enemy lines. He's taking that message directly to the American people in a way he wants to frame it. And I think it's brilliant.
Well, Bill, I remember the Reagan administration, and I remember Ronald Reagan, who got a lot of negative coverage from the media. He would do this with sort of an address to the American people. He would go over the heads of the media. He would talk directly to the American people. It was very effective. So this, I think, is Donald Trump's way of doing it. He does it through this kind of medium. He does it through Twitter. He really reaches the American people. He does it through his rallies, which are extremely effective and very popular. Yep. And I think that's what energizes his base. I think his base is with him 100%. And I think people realize he's up against incredible odds and working hard. We know this is a guy who's not loafing around. He's working for the American people. And I think, in my view, he is delivering for the American people.
Well, I've been saying for about 8 years now, or a little bit longer, that this current war for America's survival is a war of images and ideas. It's not about bullets and battleships. This is a narrative war. It's an information war. It's a perception war. Do you think that this ad is going to get some traction? Do you think it's the beginning of a whole series of ads, or do you think it's kind of a one-off, just kind of for the publicity of it?
Oh, no, Bill, I think this is part of a well thought out campaign. As you pointed out earlier, this is a media savvy individual who's made his career in real estate and on a reality TV show and through years being interviewed. I think he knows the media well. So I think he has got a plan to continue this from now until 2020. I mean, I think this is just the first in a series of different types of presentations we're going to see from the president. I think the rallies are all part of it, his social media expression. I'd like to see the president do more of a sit-down address with the American people, but that's obviously not what he's comfortable doing. The more that he can communicate directly with the American people, I think the better, Bill, because I think he's got a very good message that he can convey to the people.
I agree, Jeff, and he's obviously hired good people. Those are tremendous ads. They're very well made, very punchy, and really, really good. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. Jeff Cruer, our friend here, is available at Ringside Politics Radio. And thanks so much for joining us today, Jeff. It's great to get your insight on all of this.
Thank you, Bill.
My friend Evan Sayet, who has been on the show once or twice, said this about Donald Trump, and I think he's spot on. He said Donald Trump is a war president, and he's a war president for the kind of war that we're in. He talked about Ulysses S. Grant, who during the Civil War was a drunk. At the beginning of the war, he was a failed tanner. He was completely out of money, and he had a reputation for drinking. But Lincoln watched his career, and Lincoln said, when people would complain to him about Grant's drinking, Lincoln said, "I can't spare this man. He fights." Same thing for George Patton. George Patton was not the kind of guy you want to have at a cocktail party. George Patton was loud. He was obnoxious. He was very, very direct and bold. And this is not the kind of general that does well in peacetime, but Patton is a fighting general. He's exactly what you want when you're in the middle of a fight. And we are in the middle of the fight. And Evan's point is, and I think he's absolutely right, this is a war president. We don't care about his warts. We don't care about his warts. What we care about is, does he fight? And this ad is a pretty good example that he does. Now, real quickly before we go, just a fun little thing to kind of end up the day. Sometimes if I get a chance, I'd love to do these kind of things. there's some inside little information on the movie business in general, just these weird little sort of inside things that I find interesting, and you may as well too. And the one we want to talk about just very quickly before we go is called the Wilhelm scream. Now, as it turns out, there's a sound effect that has been in hundreds and hundreds of movies, and you probably don't know it. But originally, they made a Western. A guy gets shot by an arrow, and he gives his character's name was Wilhelm, and he gives this weird scream as he falls off his horse. Well, they used it again because it was an interesting piece of sound effects that they had. Then they used it again, and as time went on, people began to realize we got to find a way to work this thing in. So they worked it in to just about everything. So listen carefully. You'll see the first one. This is the Wilhelm scream. It's kind of a hidden Easter egg in many films made here just over the hill in Hollywood.
Wilhelm!
Yeah, I'll just fill my pipe.
See, that's just fun. That's just fun, and I have to tell you, it's great. It's a great feeling to talk about elements of the entertainment business that I do like, because I've been working at this kind of thing since I was 20, and I think that's probably a nice way to close this episode today. You know, film, movies, pop culture, all of it. It's tremendously entertaining. It's tremendously fun. It should be there to make Americans happy. It should be there for recreational purposes. It does not have to be infused with politics every single second of every single day. We do not have to get politics in every single thing that we get. So the Wilhelm scream's kind of an interesting little subnote, because people have a lot of fun doing these things. One of the reasons this town is so nuts is that people want to be in this business so badly that they'll come and they'll work for free and do all kinds of unspeakable things. But I just love the fact that sound designers had this little hidden thing, and that all of them tried to work it into their movies. And once you've heard the Wilhelm scream, I guarantee you will notice it when you hear it next time. I'll be out there watching movies or TV, and then just suddenly just drop in there and puts a little smile on my face. I just think it's really clever and really cool. Now, if only Hollywood could get out of the politics business and go back to being what they used to be, which is a storytelling business. You know, very quickly, one of the reasons that Hollywood got so left-wing was because antitrust legislation in the 30s severed the connection between the studio and the theaters. Paramount Studios used to own Paramount Theaters and so on. So they had to make movies that would put people into the theaters, or else they lose money, they go out of business. So when you cut that connection, it doesn't matter what Hollywood puts out. Not really, because they have money coming in from overseas and any number of other places. If they were making movies to make the American people happy and satisfied, we would see a very, 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 very different set of films coming from over the hill back there. Well, that'll do it for the Monday edition of the Hot Mike Show. I'm Bill Whittle. We'll be back tomorrow with an entirely new cast of characters and villains and miscreants and heroes. This is the Hot Mike Show, as I say, right here on NRATV.